The hallway was dark when Lily clutched the doorknob, her heart pounding so hard that she could hear her own pulse roaring in her ears. Her dress was damp from tears, her face tight with dried salt. Sweat made her hair cling to her forehead. She felt the cold metal under her palm as she contemplated the choice that had brought her to this strange house in the middle of the night. Everything smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne, yet she had never felt more alone. She heard footsteps echo from the far side of the hallway, a slow, deliberate sound that made her spine prickle. The unknown weighed on her like a heavy cloak. She knew she was about to make a deal that would change her life forever. One night, with the mysterious man behind that door. One promised to bear him a child in exchange for the salvation of her drowning debts. The worst part was the uncertain future. Would this man keep his word? Would he release her after she gave him what he wanted? The air felt thick with uncertainty. There was fear, yes, but also a faint flicker of strange anticipation she did not wish to acknowledge. She had not even seen him properly yet. His presence, however, filled every dark space in the house, as though the walls themselves radiated his aura. It was unsettling, almost terrifying. She did not want to push open that door, but she had little choice left. Without his money, her brother would lose the house. Her mother would collapse under the hospital bills that piled up day by day. The banks had turned her away. Friends and acquaintances had withdrawn, unwilling to shoulder such a large sum of debt. This arrangement was unthinkable. To sell her womb for financial freedom seemed more like a transaction than a path to a happy future. But Lily's life had been overshadowed by chaos and desperation for too long. Maybe, she told herself, it was the only way. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She gritted her teeth and forced the door open. Inside, the room was illuminated by a single crystal chandelier. In its subdued glow, she finally laid eyes on Donovan Reed. Tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair slicked back, he appeared larger than life. A commanding presence seeped from his very posture. He was leaning against the edge of a large wooden desk, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the door as though he had been waiting for her. He radiated an aloofness that chilled her to the bone. Lily let her trembling gaze travel from his polished black shoes, past his well-fitted suit, until it reached his face. A jaw like granite, lips pressed in a stern line, eyes the color of storm clouds, gray and intense. He did not smile. Instead, she gulped, nearly choking on the tension in her throat. "Close the door," he said, his voice low and calm. She obeyed, letting the door click shut behind her, a thin barrier separating them from any sense of normal life. The room was grand, and the silence was overwhelming. Slowly she approached, her knees weak. Donovan took a small step toward her, never breaking eye contact. He was powerful, in body and status. She hated how his presence sparked a surge of nerves within her. It felt wrong to be here, trading her body for a bailout, yet every alternative had vanished. She had no way out of her financial nightmare. "You are clear on the terms?" he asked, voice steady. "I pay your debt, you carry my child." She nodded, her lips too dry to speak. "In that case," he said, picking up a pen from the desk, "sign." He handed her a document. It was short, only a few pages, but the contents were enough to set her hands trembling. She scanned it. The language was simple, direct. She would be bound to carry his baby. In return, he would erase her debt. The sum he promised was startling. For a split second, she wondered how cold a man had to be to reduce something so intimate to a mere exchange of signatures. Then she remembered her own desperation, and that doubt fell away like a stone in a bottomless pond. She scrawled her name in shaky letters. With one final scribble, the arrangement was sealed. She looked up, her eyes locking with his. She thought his expression might soften, but it did not. He only took the papers from her and placed them on the desk. "Tonight, you remain here," he said. "We finalize the arrangement. Tomorrow, your debt will be cleared." She swallowed, fear making her voice vanish. He stepped closer, lifted her chin with a careful hand. She found herself leaning into his touch despite her own alarm. In her mind, she tried to reinforce her decision. Everything she did was for her family, for their survival. But there was a tiny spark somewhere deep inside that felt drawn to the magnetic force in his gaze. It was almost unbearable, wanting his acceptance and yet resisting it all at once. He gestured for her to follow him down another hallway. The house seemed endless, quiet halls, each lined with paintings and sculptures art worth fortunes. She could smell fresh flowers arranged in tall vases. Expensive rugs muffled their footsteps. Finally, they reached a bedroom. A bed with satin sheets, a wide window, heavy curtains. The room was warm, a contrast to the chilly, lonely corridor. Lily stood frozen near the doorway. Donovan turned, a faint flicker of emotion passing across his face. "You can still change your mind," he murmured, as though testing her resolve. "But then you leave with nothing." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I need your help." He inclined his head, an acknowledgement of her courage or desperation. "Then come in," he said. The moment stretched, heavy with apprehension. She stepped further inside, the door closing behind her with a soft click. She had made her choice, and there was no going back. 3 weeks earlier, Lily's life had been turned upside down. One phone call had changed everything. She was still living in her small, modest apartment, an old building in the heart of the city. The rent was cheap, the walls thin. At night, she could hear her neighbors arguing, their TV blaring at odd hours. But at least it was hers, and she had always been determined to keep her pride. She worked at a local bookstore, half the shelves dusty from old classics that rarely got sold. Her pay was minimal, but it had been enough for basic needs. Then tragedy struck. Lily's mother, who was caring for Lily's young nephew at home, collapsed from an undiagnosed heart condition. The hospital bills mounted quickly. The insurance coverage was far too meager. Lily's brother scrambled, but he was already behind on mortgage payments. Every call she got from the bank was more pressing than the last. Creditors were relentless, her phone ringing at all hours. She felt as though she were drowning, each wave pushing her deeper under the surface. She tried taking extra shifts. The bookstore's owner, a kindly older man, allowed her more hours. She even picked up small gigs, cleaning offices and delivering food in the evenings. But the debt was too massive. Desperation made her bold, and she began searching for unorthodox solutions. A friend mentioned a rumor about a wealthy man who was willing to help those in dire need. The details were unclear. The friend never said how or why. But Lily's curiosity was piqued. She tried investigating, but each attempt to find real information was met with dead ends. The rumor was too strange, too vague. That was until she came across an acquaintance of someone who had once worked for Donovan Reed. "He's not a bad man," the acquaintance said over coffee, her voice trembling with some hidden memory. "But he's distant, and everything comes at a price. If you seek his help, be prepared." Lily asked for details, but the acquaintance refused to elaborate. She only gave Lily a phone number and told her not to call unless she was absolutely certain she had no other options. Days went by. Lily's mother's condition worsened, and the hospital threatened to stop treatment if they could not guarantee payment. The bank had already sent Lily's brother a final warning. Each night, Lily cried herself to sleep, exhausted and terrified. She had no savings, no one else to borrow from. She weighed the moral implications. Could she reach out to a complete stranger, ask for such a huge sum? She saw no alternative. Finally, with shaking hands, She dialed the phone number. It rang and rang, each second feeling like an eternity. Then a voice answered. It was a woman's voice, brisk, professional. Lily stumbled over her words, explaining her situation. The woman listened in silence, only breaking in to ask for Lily's name and a few details. Then she said that Donovan Reed might be interested. She gave an address. Lily was to come alone, the following night at 10. Lily's legs trembled as she hung up. The next day was a blur of nerves. She explained nothing to her family, only saying she might have a solution. Her stomach felt hollow, as though all warmth had drained from her body, leaving only fear and a spark of hope. That evening she arrived at Donovan Reed's estate. The iron gates were massive, guarded by men in suits. The driveway was lined with tall trees and immaculate hedges. She felt like a peasant stepping into a kingdom. The mansion loomed at the end of the long drive, grand, elegant, intimidating. Inside, she was ushered into a waiting room. Everything gleamed: marble floors, plush chairs, crystal vases. She sat there for what felt like hours, her heart in her throat. Finally, Donovan Reed appeared. He did not greet her with warmth. Instead, he quietly assessed her, as though measuring her worth. "You're in need of money," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Lily replied, voice shaky. He asked for the sum. She told him. His eyebrows barely lifted. He leaned back in the chair across from her, fingers steepled, eyes narrowed in thought. "I'll pay it," he announced. Lily's heart soared, then plummeted at his next words. "But," he added, "I'm looking for someone to help me have a child. This arrangement will be mutual. You give me a baby, and I will give you the funds to clear your debt." Lily stared, stunned into speechlessness. It sounded absurd, surreal. She could not imagine such an offer, but she could see from his expression that he was serious. He would help her. Yet the price was unthinkable. She fled that night, not giving him an answer. The days that followed were a battle within her heart. Was she truly willing to become a surrogate? This would not be the typical clinical process. He had been clear he wanted a child that was fully his, with no complications or third-party involvement. He spoke of it like a business transaction. Lily wrestled with her conscience. She was not proud of even considering it. Yet every time she glimpsed the hospital bills or saw the strain on her mother's face, her resolve hardened. If she had a way to save them all from ruin, was it not her duty to try? But why did it have to be so personal? Why did he insist on this arrangement with her? Eventually, she called the number he had provided. The same woman answered, calm, almost indifferent. Lily asked to speak with Donovan. There was a pause, and then his rich, deep voice was on the line. "I knew you would call," he said. Lily trembled, unsure how to respond. She took a breath and said, "I'll do it, but we have to set boundaries." A pause. "Agreed. We will make it official. Come tonight. Sign the papers." She did not expect him to demand the very next night. Her chest constricted at the thought, but she found herself unable to refuse, and so she arrived at his house once more, as instructed. That night ended in the bedroom, the contract signed, and a sense of finality pressing on her like a weight. When morning came, sunlight streamed through the heavy drapes. Lily's eyes fluttered open, and she remembered where she was. She had not slept much. Nightmares had plagued her, guilt and fear swirling in a restless state. She sat up, pulling the covers around her. She realized Donovan was gone. She washed up, found her scattered clothes, and dressed. Her heart felt tangled, a mix of shame and hopeful relief. The arrangement was set in motion. She expected a cold goodbye. Perhaps he would show her out without a second glance. But as she stepped out of the bedroom, she spotted him in the living room. He was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. His attention flickered to her, and he nodded once, as though to acknowledge her presence. Then, He ended the call. "Breakfast is ready in the dining room," he said, turning away as if trying to keep it all impersonal. She felt a pinch in her chest. She wondered if he always had guests partake in a formal breakfast after such a night. The idea made her uncomfortable. She followed him, and the dining room was set with a lavish spread: fruit, pastries, eggs, fresh coffee. She could smell the strong aroma, but she had no appetite. Donovan motioned for her to sit, then sat across from her, sipping black coffee. She tried to take a small bite of toast, but her stomach knotted. "How will this work?" she asked softly. He set his coffee cup down, eyes meeting hers. "I'll have my lawyers arrange for your debt to be paid in full. That should happen by the end of the week. In return, if you become pregnant, you will remain under my care until the baby is born. After that, the child stays with me." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. She tried to swallow it down. "And me? Once you have given birth and recovered, you are free to go," he said. "You'll have no financial worries. You'll have a guaranteed sum that will allow you to take care of yourself and your family." Her eyes lowered. She nodded, though the idea of leaving her child behind felt strange. She had told herself to be detached. She had to, but the small flicker of maternal instinct gnawed at her. He cleared his throat. "You're welcome to stay here until we confirm if you're expecting. It might be less complicated if you remain in my care from this point on." She froze. She had never thought about living under his roof, but perhaps it was for the best. She wanted to ensure everything went smoothly, medically. "I need to see my family," she said. "They're worried. I didn't tell them the full truth, only that I was trying to solve our financial problems." He stood, walked to the window. The morning light framed his silhouette, giving him a distant aura. "Go see them, then come back tonight." She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing the slightest bit. "Thank you." He turned, eyes settling on her again. "Don't be late." There was a note of authority in his voice. She nodded and rose from her chair. Within minutes, a driver was taking her home. Lily's mother was in the hospital, so Lily headed there first. She found her brother in the waiting area, dark circles under his eyes. Relief dawned on his face when he saw her. "Lily," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Where were you all night?" She offered a tight smile. "Working out a solution." He stared, worried lines marking his forehead. "A solution?" She gave him a brief nod, her eyes darting to their mother's room. "Things might get better soon. I'll explain everything once the debts are settled." He wanted to ask more. She could see it in his eyes. But she looked so drained, so determined, that he held back. Lily visited her mother, who lay weak but conscious. She smiled at her daughter, though it was a fragile smile. Lily gripped her mother's hand, promising that help was on the way. She could not bear to see that hopeful expression. Guilt churned in her stomach because she could not tell her mother the truth, but she had to protect her. Later that day, Lily gathered clothes from her apartment and informed her landlord she might be gone for a while. The landlord shrugged. She was all paid up for the month, and that was all that mattered. Lily left with a small suitcase, telling herself she was doing the right thing, even if it felt so strange. When she returned to Donovan Reed's estate, the gates swung open. The driver took her to the front door. A housekeeper greeted her with a friendly smile, escorted her inside. It was larger than her entire apartment bedroom, sitting area, a private bath. The windows overlooked a serene garden with flowers of every color. There was even a small terrace. The housekeeper explained that lunch would be served in 2 hours, and dinner in the formal dining room at 7. If Lily needed anything, she only had to pick up the house phone. Once she was alone, Lily sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the soft mattress sink beneath her. She could not believe her life had transformed so drastically. Just a day ago, She was in a cramped apartment, worried sick. Now she was in an opulent mansion under a bargain that still made her chest tighten with anxiety. She changed into more comfortable clothes and wandered the halls, cautious about intruding where she should not. She discovered a library with shelves upon shelves of books, a sunroom with plush chairs, and an indoor garden that smelled of orchids. There were few staff members about, each busy with their tasks. The mansion was quiet, like a hidden world removed from ordinary life. At dinner, Donovan appeared, wearing a crisp suit, his hair neatly combed. She tried not to fidget in her seat as the housekeeper served them. The table was too big for just 2 people, making the entire setting feel stiff. He asked her about her day. She answered politely, though there was an undercurrent of tension. They were not lovers, not in any romantic sense. They were strangers with a contract. Each small talk sentence felt forced, yet Lily tried to keep it civil. After dinner, he escorted her to a study, where a doctor awaited with a discreet nurse. Lily's breath caught. She realized he wanted confirmation that the previous night had possibly resulted in conception, or at least to prepare for the possibility. The doctor ran tests, took blood samples, and spoke kindly to Lily. He assured her everything was confidential and that Donovan was simply taking every precaution to ensure a healthy pregnancy if it occurred. Her cheeks warmed with embarrassment, but she did not protest. Days turned into a week. Lily visited the doctor every other day, undergoing tests to confirm if she was pregnant. She found herself wandering the gardens in between or reading in the library. She rarely saw Donovan, except for brief dinners, where they maintained a polite if somewhat distant conversation. In that time, Lily received notice that her debt had indeed been cleared. The bank sent her confirmation letters. Her brother called her, voice shaking with gratitude. "How did you manage this?" he asked, almost gasping in relief. "They said it's fully paid off." She smiled faintly, tears pricking her eyes. "I told you I had a solution. Don't worry about it anymore. Just focus on taking care of Mom." He pressed her for details, but she gently changed the subject. She could not bring herself to share the truth. Maybe one day she would. For now, the knowledge that her family was safe was enough. But as the days passed, Lily realized she was in a strange limbo. Donovan was polite. He did not talk about his own life, why he wanted a child in such a manner, or if he had no other family. The staff treated her with professional courtesy, but she felt no warmth from them. She was in a gilded cage, free from debt but trapped by this arrangement. Each night, she expected Donovan to come to her, but he did not. She wondered if he was waiting for the doctor's confirmation first. The thought both relieved and unsettled her. Part of her dreaded more intimacy. Another part, oddly enough, felt an unexplainable loneliness. Finally, after 10 days, the doctor confirmed that Lily was pregnant. She sat in the study, hands pressed to her abdomen, a swirl of emotions churning inside. Donovan stood by the fireplace, his back to her. When the doctor announced the news, Donovan turned, giving a single nod. "Congratulations, Ms. Fields," the doctor said gently. "We'll schedule regular appointments to monitor everything. Mr. Reed wants only the best for you and the baby." Lily forced a small smile. She felt tears forming at the corners of her eyes, a mix of relief, fear, and a strange sense of awe. She was going to have a baby. Another life grew inside her. The doctor and nurse left, leaving her alone with Donovan. He approached her, stopping a foot away. His gaze traveled over her face, then lowered to her stomach. For an instant, she thought she saw tenderness in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "You'll have everything you need," he said quietly. "I'll make sure of it." She nodded, wiping away a tear. "Thank you." He studied her for a moment longer. "Are you all right?" She was surprised by the question. It was the closest thing to concern he had shown her. "I don't know," she admitted, voice trembling. "This is a lot to take in." He nodded, looking at the floor. "Yes, it is." The moment was short-lived. He cleared his throat and moved to the door. "Dinner will be at 7. I won't keep you." She watched him leave, feeling an odd ache in her chest. She was carrying his child. He was granting her family a stable future, yet she knew so little about him. He kept his distance. Her mind spun with questions she did not have the courage to ask. Pregnancy brought its own challenges. Morning sickness, fatigue, emotional swings. The staff was gentle. Donovan hired a personal nurse to check on Lily daily. She was told to rest, avoid stress, and focus on her health. Lily found herself alone for hours each day, drifting from her bedroom to the library to the gardens. She would sit and look at the flowers, the sunlight reflecting off the ponds, and think about the child growing within her. Sometimes she placed a hand on her stomach. Would she give birth, hand the baby to Donovan, and walk away forever? The contract said so. But what did her heart say? Donovan stayed busy. He was often out of the house, attending meetings or traveling for business. On the nights he was in, they shared quiet dinners. She noticed small acts of care like making sure she had fruit juice at the table when she felt ill. He would ask if she needed anything, but beyond that he remained guarded. One evening, Lily mustered the courage to approach him in his study. She knocked softly. "Come in," he said. She stepped inside, nerves fluttering in her stomach. The room smelled of leather and faint cologne. He was at his desk, looking through some files. "I just wanted to thank you again," she began. "You saved my family from ruin. I don't want you to think I'm ungrateful." He set his papers aside, focusing on her. "You're carrying my child. It's only fair that I provide for you. You don't need to thank me." She shifted on her feet, uncertain. "Still, I had nowhere else to turn." He nodded slowly, his gray eyes softening just a fraction. "I know what it's like to face life alone." The words hung in the air. She waited, hoping he might say more, perhaps share a piece of his past, but he fell silent. After a moment, she gave a small smile and turned to leave. "Lily," he called, halting her near the door. "If you need anything at all, just tell me." She looked over her shoulder. "All right," she said softly. She left, heart pounding with an emotion she could not name. There was a tenderness in his voice that she had not heard before. Weeks slipped into months. Lily's pregnancy progressed, and small changes began to take shape. She grew accustomed to living in the mansion, though it still felt surreal at times. She tried to keep in touch with her family. Her mother's health stabilized, a burden lifted by the paid bills. Her brother found new hope, picking up extra work, determined not to rely too heavily on Lily's unknown benefactor. At the mansion, Donovan made sure she had the best medical care. He set up a comfortable lounge in her suite, stocked with books, soft blankets, and anything to help her relax. Once in a while, he joined her on walks in the garden, offering his arm in a protective gesture. She noticed the way staff looked at them, some with curiosity, others with sympathy. No one dared to gossip openly. During these garden walks they spoke in cautious tones. She asked about the flowers, and he would identify them. He said the previous owner had been a horticulture enthusiast, and he kept the gardens in top condition. She noticed he spoke more about the house than about himself. Still, these moments formed a tentative bridge between them. She felt less like a stranger and more like someone important. There was a quiet respect in his eyes whenever he glanced at her, but also a sadness he hid behind stern walls. She longed to break through those walls, to understand him. Perhaps she was naive, but a small part of her hoped there was more to their connection than a mere contract. Then, one afternoon, she found Donovan in the music room, seated at a grand piano. The soft melody drifted through the corridors, drawing her in like a magnet. She stood by the door, entranced by the haunting tune. It was mesmerizing to see him in that vulnerable state, lost in the notes. When he finished, Lily stepped forward, clapping softly. He turned, startled, his eyes revealing a flicker of surprise. "I'm sorry," she said, blushing. "I heard the music." He stood, smoothing his sleeves as though embarrassed to be caught off guard. "I didn't know anyone else was here." "It was beautiful," she whispered. "I never knew you played." He shrugged, crossing the room in measured steps. "Just a hobby." Lily glanced at the piano. "Why do you hide it?" Donovan avoided her gaze. "Some things are best kept private." She nodded, biting her lip. Then she turned to go, sensing his discomfort. "Lily," he said quietly. She looked back. He hesitated, then shook his head. "Take care of yourself." She left, feeling the weight of words unspoken. As the pregnancy moved into the second trimester, Lily began to feel stronger flutters in her belly. The baby's presence was real and growing. She sometimes caught herself humming lullabies or daydreaming about the tiny person she would bring into the world. But then reality would come crashing down. The baby was Donovan's. She was to hand the baby over once it was born. That was the deal. Late at night, her mind filled with questions. Would Donovan be a good father? Would the child miss a mother's presence? She tried to suppress her maternal instincts, but it was harder than she ever imagined. She wondered if Donovan intended for her to vanish after the birth, or if he would allow some contact. The contract said nothing about visitation rights. One night, she dreamed of holding a newborn in her arms. The baby had Donovan's eyes, a curious gray that sparkled with life. In the dream, she was rocking the child gently, humming a tune. Then she felt a presence behind her. She turned, and Donovan stood there, smiling with an emotion she had never seen on his face. It was warm, open. But as she tried to speak, the dream shifted, and the baby vanished from her arms. She woke up in a cold sweat, tears on her cheeks. The next morning, she found Donovan in the living room, reading a newspaper. She hovered in the doorway, uncertainty gnawing at her. He glanced up, eyebrow raised. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She wrung her hands. "I wanted to talk about the future." He set the newspaper aside, gesturing for her to sit. She perched on the edge of an armchair, feeling her heart accelerate. "When the baby is born," she began, "what happens next? Do I just leave?" He was silent for a moment, studying her face. "That's the arrangement." She swallowed. "Will I get to see the baby at all?" His expression tightened. "Does the contract mention visitation?" She lowered her gaze. "No," he exhaled, a sound mixed with frustration and regret. "Lily, you entered this deal knowing the terms. I cannot afford complications." A hot tear trickled down her face. She brushed it away angrily. "So you'll raise our child alone?" He stood, pacing toward the window, his back to her. She rose, her voice trembling with a surge of emotion. "That doesn't mean it's what's best for the baby." He said nothing for a moment, shoulders tense. Finally, he turned halfway, meeting her gaze. "I will make sure the child wants for nothing. They will have the best of everything." "That's not the same as having a mother," Lily whispered. His jaw clenched. "I don't need a lesson on parenting. This child is my responsibility, and I won't fail." She tried to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. It was clear he had built his defenses high. She left the room, a mix of anger and sadness swirling within her. That evening Lily struggled to sleep. Her mind replayed their conversation, each word cutting deeper. She rose from bed, deciding to wander the house, hoping to tire herself out. She crept quietly through the corridors, listening to the echo of her soft footsteps. She paused outside the study, noticing the door slightly ajar. A low light glowed from within. She heard Donovan's voice quiet, strained. She peeked in, feeling guilty. He was on the phone, pacing back and forth. "I'm telling you, I've taken care of it," he said, voice clipped. "No, I don't need your advice. Listen, I didn't call for your opinion. You have no right to question my decisions. It's my child. I will do what I see fit. Stay out of my business." He ended the call with a sharp jab on the phone. His posture was rigid, like a man on the brink of losing control. Lily's heart twisted at the sight. She took a step back, intending to leave, but the floor creaked beneath her foot. Donovan turned, spotting her. A flash of something hurt. Anger crossed his face. "How long have you been there?" he demanded. She swallowed. "I just came by. I couldn't sleep. I heard you." He sighed, running a hand over his hair. It was no one of importance. She gave a hesitant nod, stepping fully into the study. "Are you all right?" His eyes flickered. For a moment he looked weary, the mask slipping. "I'm fine," he lied. Then he gestured to a chair. "Sit." She settled into the chair, cautious. He lowered himself onto the sofa across from her. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Lily spoke softly. "Donovan, I know we're not close, but I can see something is bothering you. This baby, is this part of something deeper? Why did you choose this way?" He stared at his hands. "I don't expect you to understand." "Try me," she said, surprising herself with her boldness. His jaw flexed. He lifted his gaze to a painting on the wall, as though it held old memories. "I grew up without a father," he began, voice low. "My mother struggled, working 2 jobs. We had no one to rely on. At times, we barely had a roof over our heads. I swore I'd never be in that position again." She listened, heart clenched by the pain in his tone. "I built my empire from the ground up. I trust no one. Relationships, they come with betrayal. I learned that the hard way." She leaned forward. "But you wanted a child. Surely that means you believe in some kind of future beyond yourself." His eyes shifted to her. There was a flicker of vulnerability. "I want an heir, someone I can protect and provide for, someone to carry on what I've built." Her throat tightened. "So that's all it is? An heir?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze dropped. "I don't want my child to grow up like I did. No father, no security." He paused, then added softly, "No mother." Tears pricked her eyes. "But you're planning to raise them alone. That's not going to fill the void." His shoulders slumped, and he looked away. "I don't know any other way. Every time I've let someone in, it ended badly. I can't risk that for my child." She wanted to protest, to ask if he truly believed she would betray him, but she saw the pain etched in his features. Instead of pushing, she rose, stepping over to the sofa. She sat beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "I can't promise you I won't ever hurt you," she said softly. "But I do know that child deserves 2 parents who care, even if they're not together in a typical way." He tensed under her touch, then slowly relaxed. For a moment, they sat in silence, a fragile understanding passing between them. Lily's heart ached. She saw in Donovan not just a cold millionaire, but a man who had been hurt deeply and now hid behind walls. She longed to show him something different. But was that her place? They had a contract, not a promise of love. As Lily's belly grew, so did the attention from the staff. Donovan hired a professional chef, who prepared balanced meals for her and made sure her cravings were met. Her health was carefully monitored by the doctor. Donovan escorted her to weekly checkups, never missing a single one. Their closeness did not go unnoticed. One afternoon, as Lily was returning from the garden, she overheard 2 house staff whispering near the kitchen. "She's just here to give him an heir," one said. "But I've seen the way he looks at her sometimes. He's not as indifferent as he pretends." The other scoffed. "He doesn't do love. Mark my words, he'll end up driving her away. She'll leave as soon as the baby's born." Lily stepped back, her cheeks burning. She felt a pang in her chest at their words. Could they be right? Part of her worried that once the baby arrived, he'd shut her out completely. Another part hoped they might find a path forward together. That evening she was invited to a gala event. Donovan rarely socialized, but this was a major charity function, and he had to attend. He asked Lily to join him, saying it would be good for her to step outside the mansion. She hesitated, uncertain about facing the public while visibly pregnant. But his gaze held a hint of genuine request, so she agreed. Wearing a flowing gown, Lily felt self-conscious about her belly. But Donovan appeared impressed when she came downstairs. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You look beautiful," he said, offering his arm. She blushed, touched by the compliment. The gala was a swirl of music, chatter, and bright lights. Donovan introduced Lily to several business associates, who eyed her curiously but were polite. Still, Lily noticed one woman in particular elegant, tall, with dark hair and sharp features watching her from across the room with open suspicion. Later, that woman cornered Lily near the refreshment table. "So you're the one carrying Donovan Reed's child?" she said, tone dripping with condescension. Lily swallowed, trying to maintain composure. "Yes." The woman laughed coldly. "You must think you've hit the jackpot. Donovan is wealthy, power-fuel everything a gold digger wants." Lily's cheeks heated. "I'm not after his money." She shrugged, sipping her champagne. "Of course. You're just here out of love, right?" She let out a mocking laugh. "He doesn't do love, darling. You're a temporary arrangement, and once that baby is in his hands, he'll toss you aside. Believe me, I've known him for years." Lily's throat constricted. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I hate to see a naive girl get her hopes up." She tossed her hair over her shoulder. "Donovan Reed is a closed door. Don't think you're any different." With that, she walked away, leaving Lily shaking from the encounter. She tried to regain her composure, but the woman's words echoed in her mind, fueling her insecurities. When Donovan found Lily, he noticed her distress. "Something wrong?" She forced a smile. "I'm just tired. Can we leave soon?" He nodded, placing a protective hand at the small of her back as he guided her out. The entire ride home, Lily stared out the window, silent tears threatening to spill. Donovan cast her questioning glances, but she said nothing. The last thing she wanted was to seem weak or clingy. Over the next week, Lily threw herself into preparing for the baby. She studied parenting books, though she often wondered if she was preparing for a role she might never fully have. Donovan observed her from a distance, occasionally stepping in to offer support or comfort. One afternoon she ventured to the city to pick out a few personal items for the baby: a small plush toy, tiny socks. Even if she would not keep the baby, she wanted to offer something of herself. But as she walked through the store, she felt eyes on her. She turned to see a reporter with a camera phone, snapping pictures. She grew alarmed. Since Donovan was a public figure, it was not surprising that the press might be curious. She panicked, quickly leaving the shop, heart pounding. By the time she arrived back at the mansion, her hands were shaking. Donovan was waiting in the foyer, his expression tense. "Did something happen?" he asked immediately. She explained about the reporter. Rage flickered in his eyes. He pulled out his phone, making a flurry of calls to ensure her privacy. Lily could only watch in awe as he demanded the immediate removal of any photos from tabloids, threatening legal action. When he was done, he turned to her, his voice gentler. "I'm sorry. I should have had security with you." She shrugged, still trembling. "I didn't expect anyone to notice me." He stepped closer, placing a firm yet comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're carrying my child. I won't let anyone exploit that." Her breath caught at the intensity of his words. She realized then that despite his walls, Donovan cared in his own guarded way. She nodded, grateful but still uneasy. The third trimester arrived, and Lily's belly became quite pronounced. She felt the baby's kicks more strongly. She tried to imagine what the baby might look like, whether they'd have Donovan's dark hair or her brown eyes. The thought filled her with both excitement and heartbreak. One night, Lily woke with a start, sharp pain twisting her lower abdomen. "Alarmed," she gasped, pressing a hand to her belly. She tried to breathe through the discomfort. After a few minutes, the pain subsided to a dull ache. She called the nurse, who rushed to her side, checking her vitals. Donovan appeared moments later, wearing a robe, hair disheveled from sleep. His face was etched with concern. "What happened?" he asked, voice thick with worry. The nurse reassured him that Lily might be experiencing Braxton Hicks contractions, a normal part of pregnancy. But Donovan hovered, his expression revealing how much he cared. He stayed by Lily's bedside until the pain eased completely, only leaving when she insisted he should rest. In that moment, seeing the alarm in his eyes, Lily felt a swell of hope. Perhaps his heart was not as closed as everyone claimed. One peaceful evening, Lily sat in the garden, enjoying the cool breeze. Donovan joined her, surprisingly quiet. They watched the sunset paint the sky in orange and pink hues. Finally, he broke the silence. "The baby is due in a month." She nodded, placing a hand on her stomach. "Yes." He inhaled, gaze fixed on the horizon. "When the time comes, I'll make sure the birth happens in the best hospital. Private, secure. You won't have to worry about reporters or anything like that." She turned to him, searching his face. "And after?" He closed his eyes briefly, as though in pain. "You know the terms." Her heart sank. Still, she reached for his hand, tentatively lacing her fingers with his. He tensed, but did not pull away. "I don't want to say goodbye to this child," she whispered, tears brimming. "I know we agreed, but—" He gently squeezed her hand, his eyes softening. "I know," he said, voice low. "I can't lie. I don't have an answer yet. The contract is clear, but—" He paused, his voice catching. "I never expected to feel—" He cut himself off, as though words were inadequate. But Lily understood. She felt it too. She wondered if this could lead to something real, or if fear would keep them apart. A week before Lily's due date, Donovan had to travel on urgent business. He was reluctant to leave, but matters demanded his attention. He promised to return within 3 days. Lily felt uneasy, but she did not want to hold him back. The second day of his absence, Lily woke in the night with strong contractions. Pain radiated through her body. She struggled to get out of bed, calling the nurse in panic. The nurse arrived quickly, checking Lily's vitals. The contractions were coming fast, too fast for a calm, measured trip to the hospital. Alarmed, the nurse called the doctor, who instructed them to rush Lily to the private hospital near Donovan's estate. Lily felt a wave of panic. She desperately wanted him by her side. Still, there was no time to wait. She was whisked into a car with a small entourage of staff. By the time they reached the hospital, Lily's contractions were relentless. She was wheeled into a birthing suite, doctors and nurses bustling around. Sweat beaded her forehead, and tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. She had never felt such raw pain or fear. "Donovan," she whimpered, clutching the nurse's hand. "He's not here." The nurse tried to soothe her, but Lily's heart ached. She wanted him there, to feel his steady presence. After hours of intense labor, Lily heard the sharp cry of a newborn. Relief, shock, and an overwhelming rush of love coursed through her. She collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. The doctor lifted a tiny baby and announced. The nurse carried the baby to Lily's arms. She gazed down at the tiny face, heart swelling with an indescribable emotion. The baby's eyes were shut tight, his face scrunched from crying. She stroked his cheek with trembling fingers, marveling at the softness, the reality of him. "He's perfect," she whispered. At that moment, the door burst open. Donovan rushed in, disheveled, his eyes wide with worry. He had come straight from the airport, it seemed, not even bothering to change clothes. He froze at the sight of Lily cradling the baby. For a moment he stood there, breath hitching. Then he crossed the room in swift strides. "How is she?" he demanded of the doctor, voice urgent. "Mother and baby are healthy," the doctor answered. "A bit earlier than expected, but everything seems fine." Donovan exhaled, relief sagging his shoulders. He approached Lily's bedside, his gaze flicking from her face to the baby. Softly, he reached out, running a fingertip over the baby's tiny hand. The baby gripped his finger with surprising strength. Donovan stared, overwhelmed. Lily saw tears glimmer in his eyes. Her chest tightened. The emotion on his face was raw and genuine. She had never seen him look so vulnerable. The hospital room quieted as the staff stepped out, giving them privacy. Lily held the baby close, Donovan at her side. The baby's cries had subdued, replaced by soft whimpers. But then Lily remembered the contract. The weight of that knowledge returned, heavy as a storm cloud. She lifted her gaze to Donovan, her heart pounding. "So," she said, voice shaking, "this is it. This is your heir." He closed his eyes for a second. "Yes." She swallowed the knot in her throat. "According to our deal, I'm to leave after I recover. You'll raise him alone." A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the baby's soft breath. Donovan's jaw worked, as though he was trying to find words. Finally, he reached out and gently brushed Lily's hair aside. "I can't let you go," he said, voice thick with emotion. A wave of confusion and hope crashed over Lily. Her heart pounded violently in her chest. She searched his eyes. "Forget the contract," he whispered, looking at the baby, then at her. "I've been running from my own fears." He paused, his voice trembling. "You changed me, Lily. This isn't just about an heir. It's about us. I don't want our son to grow up without both parents. I don't want you to leave." Tears poured down Lily's cheeks. She clutched the baby, her entire world shifting. The fear of being torn from her child had haunted her for months. Now hearing Donovan say he wanted her to stay felt surreal. "But can we make this work?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "We come from different worlds, Donovan. You barely let anyone in. And I never meant to intrude on your life." He took a careful seat on the edge of the bed, leaning close. "You are not an intrusion. You are the mother of my child. And I—" He broke off, gazing at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I've fallen for you, Lily. Slowly, against my own will maybe, but I can't deny it anymore." She sobbed, relief and joy mingling. "I thought everyone said you didn't do love." He bowed his head, almost a self-conscious gesture. "I believed that once. But I couldn't stop myself from caring about you. And now, seeing our son, I want a family, with you." In the days that followed, Lily and the baby stayed in the hospital until the doctor gave them the all-clear. Donovan never left their side. He held the baby, fed him with trembling hands, and stared at the child with awe. When Lily was discharged, Donovan brought them both back to the mansion, no longer a place of cold, distant halls, but a home. He set up a nursery next to Lily's suite, though more often than not, the baby stayed in Lily's room. The staff noticed the difference too. There was a warmth in Donovan's demeanor that had not been there before. He smiled more easily, especially when he looked at Lily or the baby. The tension in the house eased, replaced by a gentle hope. Lily's mother and brother came to visit, welcomed by Donovan himself. They were stunned by the opulence of the mansion, but more shocked to see the change in Lily's situation. They met the baby, and tears of joy were shed. They embraced Donovan with gratitude, though he seemed a bit awkward with their open affection. At night, she and Donovan would sometimes talk for hours, sharing bits of their pasts, their fears, and dreams. He confided his childhood struggles, the betrayals that led him to seal off his heart. She shared her worries about being a good mother, and her doubts about belonging in his world. Slowly, they comforted each other, forging a bond that transcended the contract. As the baby grew, Lily and Donovan faced new challenges. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, the stress of parenthood. But they faced them together, supporting each other. Donovan discovered patience he never knew he had. Lily found strength in his unwavering presence. They began discussing the next step in their relationship. Donovan was resolute that he wanted Lily to remain, not as a contractual obligation, but as his partner. He did not propose marriage immediately, too aware that trust is something built over time, but he expressed his genuine desire to have a real family, a future they would shape together. Lily felt uncertain at times, wondering if she was good enough for him, or if she could fit into the world of wealth and power he inhabited. But every time she voiced those fears, Donovan would gently remind her that she belonged wherever he was, because they were in this together. Months passed, and the baby reached Milestoneshi's first smile, his first laugh. Each moment brought Lily and Donovan closer, yet, in the background, there remained a subtle tension. The contract still technically existed. Legally, Donovan had full custody rights. There was a risk that if his old fears re-emerged, he could close himself off and revert to the cold man he once was. Lily tried not to dwell on this, but sometimes at night, doubts would creep in. One evening, Donovan was called away on urgent business in another city. He promised he would return in a few days, but Lily could see a hint of worry in his eyes. He had not traveled since the baby was born, nervous about leaving them alone. She reassured him that they would be fine. The second night of his absence, Lily woke to the sound of the baby crying. She comforted him, but the child would not calm down. Panicking, she called the doctor. The baby had a slight fever, likely a minor infection. Lily followed the doctor's instructions, giving him the proper medicine. She was alone, missing Donovan's reassuring presence. What if something worse happened? By the third day, the baby's fever broke, and Lily breathed a sigh of relief. Donovan returned that afternoon looking exhausted, tie askew. He rushed to Lily's side, heart pounding with fear at her voice message about the baby's fever. She placed the now smiling child in his arms, and Donovan held him close, relief flooding his face. As Lily watched father and son together, she felt an overwhelming tenderness. This was her family. They had overcome so many obstacles. No matter what challenges came next, she wanted them to face it together. That night, Donovan insisted Lily get some rest. He took care of the baby for most of the evening, allowing her time to relax. Sometime after midnight, she woke to find him in the nursery, rocking the baby in the soft glow of a lamp. His voice was low, humming a gentle tune. Lily paused at the doorway, a lump in her throat at the scene. When he noticed her, he stood, laying the baby in the crib and walking over. He took her hands, leading her back to her bedroom. Once inside, he closed the door softly and turned to her. "There's something I want to talk to you about," he said, voice filled with warmth and determination. Lily's heart fluttered. "What is it?" He took a small box out of his pocket. Her eyes widened, breath catching in her throat. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "Marry me, Lily," he said softly. "Not because of the contract, not because of money, but because I love you, because we have a child together, and I can't imagine facing another day without knowing you're truly mine and I am yours." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She pressed a hand to her mouth, the enormity of the moment hitting her. All her doubts, the sleepless nights, the fear of losing her baby all vanished under the sincerity in Donovan's eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Donovan." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then cradled her face in his hands, pressing a tender kiss to her lips. For the first time in her life, Lily felt safe, loved, and at peace. They held each other tightly, hearts beating in unison. Outside, the house was still, as though the world paused to celebrate their happiness. In the nursery, their baby slept soundly, secure in the knowledge that his parents were together, forging a future built on hope, understanding, and a love that had taken root in the most unlikely of circumstances. Word spread among the staff that Donovan and Lily would soon marry. The once cold mansion transformed into a place of celebration. Lily's mother and brother were ecstatic, welcoming Donovan with open arms. He, in turn, invested in better medical care for Lily's mother and helped her brother find a stable job. Lily insisted they not become too dependent, but Donovan explained that this was family, and he cared for them as such. The wedding was a small, private ceremony in the mansion's garden. Lily wore a simple white gown, her belly now smaller after a few months of giving birth but still reflecting the gentle curve of motherhood. Donovan stood tall beside her, wearing a navy suit and a soft smile that spoke volumes. Their baby was carried by Lily's mother, fussing in a little outfit that matched Donovan's tie. They exchanged vows under a blooming arch of roses. Donovan's voice trembled as he promised to stand by Lily, protect her, and love her for as long as he lived. Lily fought back happy tears as she vowed to share his burdens, celebrate his joys, and never break the trust they had built together. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Donovan kissed Lily with all the tenderness she never imagined she would find in him. Applause filled the garden, and the baby gurgled as though adding his own little cheer. Later, as they danced in the soft glow of twilight, Donovan pressed his forehead to hers. "I never thought I deserved a family," he murmured, voice filled with awe. "You proved me wrong." She cupped his cheek, gazing into his gray eyes. "You've given me more than I ever dreamed possible," she said. "A life without debt, the father of my child, and now, a loving husband." He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that melted her heart every time. "We both found what we needed, a home in each other." Their child cooed from a nearby stroller, as if in agreement. Laughter bubbled up between Lily and Donovan, echoing around the garden. Friends, family, and staff joined the celebration, raising glasses in a toast to the new Coupleian strangers, brought together by a desperate bargain, now united by a bond far stronger than any contract. And so, in that mansion that had once felt like a prison, Lily found true happiness. Donovan, once a man who trusted no one, opened his heart and discovered he was capable of love. Their baby, born of a deal that neither truly believed would bring joy, became the precious link that held them together. In the years to come, Lily and Donovan would face new challenges, as all couples do, but they would face them side by side, no longer alone. Their child grew, surrounded by warmth and support, never experiencing the isolation Donovan had once known. Lily's family healed, and Donovan's cold, quiet home turned into a place of laughter and second chances. Whenever Lily looked back on the night she first signed that contract, she marveled at how life could twist in such unexpected ways. What began as a desperate move to save her family's future became the start of a love story unlike any other, a story of fear and hope, sorrow and joy, culminating in a life they built together. And no matter how unsettling the terms had been at first, the ending was filled with the warmth of a true family, proving that sometimes the most unlikely arrangements can lead to the greatest of blessings.